Okay, who can tell me what that sound is?
Internet in 1995.
Okay, yes. So once upon a time, there was no such thing as the internet. I know it's really hard to believe, but when I was growing up, that sound was what I heard every time that I wanted to go and surf the net. It was awful. Even though the internet was conceived of in 1960, it wasn't released publicly until 1991. And at that point, that's when it came kicking and screaming with this terrible, terrible noise, which she better play it again, but it's okay, no big deal. You heard it the first time, it was terrible, right? Yeah, that. Thankfully now, internet technology has advanced to the point where we don't have to hear that anymore, and we can now quietly carry the internet everywhere with us in our pockets. So today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about something that should be of great importance to all of us as users of the internet, net neutrality. And that's something that you should probably be familiar with because it's been in the news a lot recently. The FCC just last month actually voted to protect net neutrality. But as I'm going to explain to you throughout this speech, you'll see that that decision was not enough. We need to get more insurance in protecting this democratic potential of the internet with net neutrality. So during this speech, I'm going to do three things. First, I'm going to tell you exactly what net neutrality is and why it's significant to us. Second, I'm going to explain what I mean by this democratic potential that the internet has. And finally, I'm going to talk about why we need to get Congress involved and what we can do as average citizens to protect net neutrality. So first of all, what is net neutrality? Dr. Stanley Barron, who is the Communications Department founding chair at Bryant University, defines net neutrality as the requirement that all ISPs allow the free and equal flow of web traffic. So basically what this means is that regardless of how popular your website is or how not popular your website is, you should still be able to have the same, people should still be able to have the same access, the same ease, the same quality to get to your website than for somebody who, for example, is like ExxonMobil and has tons of money, which is exactly why it's so important. Because not only does it matter how, next slide. Not only does it not matter how, it doesn't matter how popular your website is, it also doesn't matter how much value your website has. So this is good news for people that like to build, startup companies, people who have small businesses, people who just want to blog and have their voice be heard. You need this net neutrality because otherwise we have no competition with people that have billions of dollars. So if you're still wondering why net neutrality should matter to you, and it's a kind of boring topic, you guys look a little bored. So let's talk about something that we all want to talk about. Who uses Facebook? Don't lie, everybody raise your hands. I knew it. Okay, we all use Facebook. I love Facebook. Can you imagine life without it? It's a little bit hard, right? But if it were not for net neutrality, the likelihood of us having ever even heard of Facebook? Not so much. I was supposed to tell you to switch slides. Okay, Facebook. Facebook is great. Do you know why we would not have heard about Facebook if it weren't for net neutrality? Because even if he was some rich kid at Harvard, I'm pretty sure that Mark Zuckerberg would not have $0.5 billion to throw into some social media investment in an idea that he came up with one night when he was drunk in his dorm room. But do you know who did have $0.5 billion? MySpace.com. I'm not sure if you guys remember MySpace, but at the time, they were worth $500 million. And you can bet that if they had found out about some startup social media site that was gaining popularity, they would have thrown some mega bucks at the ISPs to squash the competition. Now, if we want to take the net neutrality thing even further back and say that we wouldn't have had it, we might not even have had MySpace, because before MySpace, there was Friendster. I'm pretty sure you guys don't remember Friendster, but it kind of sucked. I mean, it wasn't very good, right? It was like you write something and you're like, it's not fun. Not as good as MySpace, but what's even better than MySpace is Facebook. And the reason we have these advancements is because of net neutrality. So now that we have a kind of, better idea of what net neutrality is, let's talk about what democratic potential is, what I mean when I say democratic potential of net neutrality. So I think that Dr. Zizi Papagarisi, pretty sure that's how you say it, it's a fancy name, but she is the head of the Department of Communications in the University of Illinois at Chicago. She actually explains it really well when she says that anonymity online enhances free and open communication, thus promoting a more enlightened exchange of ideas. a growing body of literature attests to the potential that the internet has for reviving political discussion. And we see kind of an evidence of exactly what she's talking about every day when you scroll through our news feeds. So in between the memes of Grumpy Cat and the rotten e-cards, somewhere in between that, we also have these viral stories about social injustice, about human rights advancements, about modern day heroism. These are the stories that matter. These are the ones that within these stories, we also have heated discussions, arguments, political, intelligent conversations. Sometimes not. I mean, it's a little, sometimes not. But the point is, people are talking. People are talking about these stories. And that hasn't happened. There was no platform for that prior to this. And because of net neutrality, we have the ability for this political, or for this democratic potential. People share and talk about these stories, and with a platform like Facebook, with social media, where we're actually allowed to talk about these things, what that does is it forces entities, political or corporate, it forces them to maintain some type of transparency. Because when we can talk about whatever we want and make it go viral, we have these, what might have been considered small issues, can be brought to the public. And for this reason, bigger companies and entities need to maintain transparency. This is what I mean when I say democratic potential. So why am I talking about this today? As I've already pointed out, and I think we can all agree, net neutrality is something that's really important to us. We definitely need it, and it's a good thing. But the FCC just voted last month that we're going to protect it, right? So why am I up here talking about it? Because the FCC, as much as they want you to believe that their word is final, and as much as we want to believe that something so important as net neutrality is protected, as much as we want to think that there's nothing that is going to threaten our ability to use the internet freely, it's just not the case. What happens with the FCC is that it does not have any real authority over this private sector of ISPs. Actually, what ended up happening in 2010, the FCC had been trying to protect net neutrality since 2004. But in 2010, an appellate court actually overthrew a ruling, or actually threw out a case for the FCC that they brought in against Comcast, a giant ISP, for infringing on net neutrality. And Judge David Tatel said, because the FCC has failed to tie its assertion of regulatory authority to an actual law enacted by Congress, the agency does not have the power to regulate an internet provider's network management practices. So there it is. The FCC can say, we need net neutrality, we enforce it, but can they do it? No, because we don't have a law from Congress. So what we need to do, what can we do? What can we do as average citizens to work towards maintaining and protecting net neutrality? First of all, the most effective thing that we can do is get our congressmen involved, to talk to them. So you can either go to this site, and I know it's ridiculously long, so just Google instead, contact Hawaii Congress, and then you'll be able to find their information, their phone numbers and addresses. And then you can actually contact your senators and your representatives and tell them how important net neutrality is. You tell those Congress people that it is their job to protect the internet and that we the people are holding them accountable for doing their job. If you don't want to go and call your senators and representatives, some of us are shy, there's always petitions that are going around. If you actually look for it, or just keep your eye open for it, don't scroll through your news feed so fast, there are always petitions to protect net neutrality going around. And if there isn't, start one on change.org. This is something that you can do. The more signatures that a petition has, the more likely it is to be taken seriously by the federal government. But what if you really don't want to do either of those things? Okay, at the very least, as an intelligent, involved, educated citizen of the United States or France. You need it too. You need net neutrality too. As citizens, at least keep informed. At least talk about it. Because if we can keep net neutrality at the forefront of our discussions, the forefront of political discussions, then we continue to remind these ISP private corporations, these big time money people, that we are watching them and we care about what they do with our internet. So what did we talk about today? We talked about the significance of net neutrality and why it matters so much to us today, what it is. We talked about what democratic potential means and why the internet or net neutrality is vital to preserving that democratic potential of the internet. And finally, we talked about why it is absolutely necessary for Congress to pass some type of legislation to protect net neutrality and what we as average citizens can do for our own part in protecting it. It's our internet, make your voice be heard. This is a platform that we have. Use it. Be appreciative of what we do have in the status quo, which is net neutrality. Don't let them take it away from you. We need to protect this internet because it's ours.